Phil should be here by now.
Okay, I'll call him. Not picking up. He must be in a meeting. So
No, he's entering now.
oh, he is? Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
It's only 3 people waiting so far.
No, that's okay. Yeah, it's still 5 minutes to start.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have around 15 people, I guess. That's my guess. I don't know.
Okay, that's good.
That's my estimate. Yeah, like we should start like at 10:05 or something like that. Like meanwhile, you can say, okay, guys, like we're waiting for more people to connect, so we're starting in the following 5 to 10 minutes. So
Okay.
thanks for your patience or something like that. Yeah. Okay.
So let them in now.
Yeah, I think you should start accepting people now.
Should I let them in?
Pardon?
Should I let them in? There's only 4 in the waiting.
Four people? Yeah, I think like in 2 minutes. Yeah,
Okay.
in 2 minutes you start.
Hey, Phil.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I'm doing the first broadcast here at the CSE recording studio.
Ooh.
So I'm trying to figure out whether or not, you see the tower in the background behind here?
Mm-hmm.
Should I raise the this thing or shall I leave it? Might be too much of a distraction.
No, but it's okay. Okay, that's fine. It looks great.
Okay, cool.
See, Phil, I actually have a picture of Toronto here now.
Looks great, except you don't have a picture of the first Canadian place where it could have referenced.
Oh, that's true.
This faces south, right? In
Yeah,
fact,
yeah.
in fact, this is probably taken from Young and Bloor or somewhere around there. Anyways, can you just walk through the presentation just so I'll look at it one time?
Yeah. So I got this stuff.
Who's calling? Someone's. Is that me or you?
Was that me? I called you like 5 minutes ago.
No, some.
Oh.
Oh, never mind. Okay.
Yeah, and then so I get here, and then I introduce Camilo, and then Camilo hands it off to you once he's done speaking about his experiences.
Yeah, okay.
And then you go to.
I should do a quick intro about myself at that point too, right? I
Yeah,
guess.
I'm not going to introduce you guys and like talk about much of your history. I'm just going to briefly mention, and then so you guys can introduce yourselves. I don't know if you want to do that here or in your own section.
Uh, yeah, maybe in my own section. That's fine.
Okay, that's fine. And then goes to, oh yeah, and then I talk about, I'm going to talk about XTM and BIG. So mention these when you get here.
Okay, as an FYI, I did some research and Bryna Technologies was the largest CSE technology company financing we had, which was 60 million,
Oh, wow. When was that?
2021.
Okay.
But
Oh,
they also did they were dual listed on NASDAQ at the time. And they did a short form prospectus. So in other words, they put it out for US investors to be able to buy it. And yeah, they ended up getting 60 million. The largest non-dual listed CSE company was 52, and that was Tenant. It's a company out of Montreal.
yeah, it's 10.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
already 10.
I'll let
Like there,
them.
there should be people waiting now.
Okay.
Like I start accepting people waiting.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Everyone was auto muted, but feel free to talk if you'd like. You can unmute.
¿Qué más? Dime que, ¿cómo vas? ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? Gustavo, ¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás? Les está mi chiquitico, Nicolás y Lucía. Saluda a Cali, con la familia. Ah, sí, feliz cumpleaños.
I'll just wait another couple minutes here. Okay, I think we can get started. Everybody's ready here. Hopefully you can hear me fine. So hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on public listings in Canada. Today, we're exploring how companies in the world can list here. And even if you're in Bogota, 4,000 kilometers away from Toronto, it's simpler than you might think. Think of Canada's venture exchanges as an accessible, like low cost avenue for early stage funding. So you can bypass like the often intense company controlling world of private equity and venture capital. So instead, you can go public internationally. And just a quick housekeeping note, you are all automated. If you want to talk about something, just raise your hand and we can address that. Or you can use the chat. So here we go. So I'm Patrick. I'm based out of Toronto. I've lived here my whole life. My whole career has been in the capital markets. I've worked for about like 3 or 4 investment banks, a merchant bank, and a cannabis company. So I've done a lot of early stage work. These are all for companies that were less than like 100 million market cap. I'm an equity research analyst by trade. I don't practice that much anymore, but when I started, I worked with mining companies and I wrote stock research on them, so including like their valuations and like modeling and all the writing. From there, I branched out to more consulting work, which is why I made this company. And other than that, I do some programming as well. So I work in Python, so I've always been honing my skills in that. Joining me are my colleagues Camilo and Phil. Camilo is a seasoned founder who's navigated the CSE, the Canadian Securities Exchange, which is what we're going to talk about. He's done it before. He's a founder that has come to Canada and listed a company there, starting off in Bogota. So he knows right away like what it takes to come here. And Phil is the director of listings for the CSE. Him and I worked together 4 or 5 years ago, and very friendly guy. And he's interested in talking to all of you guys, anyone who's interested in coming to the CSE, because if you have a company with the right requirements, you can do it. So I just want to start and go over some like macro like overhead stuff. So this is all the global exchanges in the world, the top 20. And as you can see on the left side, you have the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ, which covers about more than a third of all exchange market caps. But these are essentially not available to you because you need to have a minimum sales of 100 million to get on these exchanges. And for the Euronext and the Shanghai and the Japanese exchanges, they're a little bit far and a little bit different. I should notice that the Toronto Stock Exchange here is number 10. And that just shows, and we're ahead of the London Stock Exchange in terms of market cap. This is 3.3 trillion. And that's because in Toronto, we're above our weight class. Toronto, a population of 3 million, London, a population of 9. We do a lot of business here, and you don't have to go far. So this is a pathway for a potential Latin American company, a company from Central America, South America, what they could do in their public journey. So you're a private company, you're thinking about what you want to do, you want to raise some money, you have some options, you can go private equity, but you could also go public and see what the public markets thinks about your company. So your options generally here, or of proximity to you, are the CSE, TSX, and the OTC. The more better exchanges are the TSXV and the CSE in terms of like having regulations and the things that you have to do and tradable shares that are actually traded so you get some volume. Is that your options are the CSE and TSXV. In our opinion, the CSE is better and easier. Not only is it easier, the fees are a little bit lower, and we'll go over that later. So if you do go public, and let's say you're a small company, maybe like 10 million in size or something, You can build yourself here and use it to raise public capital through equity or debt or whatever you want to do. And then over time, you can grow big enough to reach the right side of the board. And that includes the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ, which should be your targets. So it's just a matter of getting to 100 million. And then from there, you can decide if you want to go to Europe or Asia, which just depends on your experience and what money you want to unlock in the world. I should also say that the CSE has a tiered system, and this is sort of a new thing, where if you meet the requirements for a second tier, you can do different and larger financings, and more bigger institutions would be interested in your stock. And so essentially, you could list on the CSE and then skip the TSX and go straight to the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ or something like that. So just to go over what the CSE is quickly, it's an exchange here. It's a national exchange. It's one of a few that you could choose that are venture exchanges. Venture exchanges are like a unique thing that we have here in Canada. In South America and Mexico, to my understanding, it's not as big in terms of like volume and number of companies that are listed and opportunities. It's here in Toronto. This is where the stock exchange is. Phil's on the 70, if I'm not mistaken, the 72nd floor of the BMO building, and this is one of the largest buildings in downtown Toronto. And so we also have a venture exchange, which is more history, but it's not really focused on tech companies. I looked on their brokerage, like their marketing piece, and they didn't even have a section on tech companies. So it's not really something that they're focused on. They're more into like mining and energy and things like that. And so when you go through the CSE, you have to go through all these like regulations. So you would have to report quarterly financials. You would have to have some directors, and you have to do all these things. And we'll go over that later, but it's a little bit of a process. So just to go over stock performance, I think I priced this maybe a week or two ago. I just wanted to show you that the difference in what's happening in the tech space right now is that everything's going pretty well. Year to date, tech's up like 50%, and clean tech's up even higher. So the appetite is there for tech companies, more so than the other companies. And there is just not enough fresh stories that people are interested in. So I think the opportunity is definitely there to come here with your novel idea, and people will take notice. So these are the top 10 companies on the CSE right now. I just wanted to talk about a couple of them. So BIG and what was the one? Sorry, XTM. So XTM is a fintech innovator. So they do reimbursements for workers and hospitality and personal care. They had their last quarter, they reported 1.8 million in sales. So if you analyze that to 7.5, that's a multiple of about 4 times. So that's what they're getting on the market right now, and their market cap is around 30 million. And BIG is another one that has done quite well of late. They're a crypto platform with a bunch of other services as well, and they did 3.5 million last quarter. And so if we do the same math, it equates to about 4.2 times. So these companies are sort of trading in 4 times range. So if whatever your sales are, if you're kind of like thinking, where is my valuation going to be? I think that's maybe an okay indicator of what you can do. I should also mention that I looked up Scope AI Corp, or Scope AI, yeah, and they actually don't have any sales. So it is possible to list without any sales, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. But if you have a really interesting idea, the market is really interested in AI technology right now, you could probably do it. But it's harder. There's more risk in that, because maybe in a few quarters people are not so interested in AI anymore. So not to say that it's just the flavor of the month, but yeah, just keep in mind that certain tech categories have certain premiums. So this is total tech financings from 2017 to 2024 at the CSE. So we can see that over this range, the number of financings per year in terms of total raised is between 100 and 200 million. In 2021 was a peak year for the CSE because they had a lot of cannabis financings. There was like a big cannabis boom here, and then also a lot of tech companies came here as well. And it was a really great moment in Canada for everybody to raise money, and there was like a ton of money raised throughout all the exchanges. Right now, year to date, we're on the same pace of last year, and it seems like we're on the up and up here, and it's going to be easier to raise money in terms of tech in Canada because people are looking for those types of companies. Here is the percentage weight of tech financings. This is just like over time, it has been ranging under the 5%, and now it's really gone above its weight in terms of total weight of the CSE exchange. So this is a really healthy thing you want to see if you're a tech company, because it tells you that there's tech companies are going up in terms of market cap and valuation, and there seems to be an opportunity for a lot of tech companies to raise money right now because that's what they're looking for. Okay, now now I just want to introduce Camilo. He's going to speak for a little bit. Camilo, let's go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Patrick, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today. So my name is Camilo Villalba. I've been an entrepreneur for several years. I'm currently the CEO and co-founder of Accione. Accione is a platform that assists importers and big distributors by providing an extensive sales channel. Importers in Colombia often face significant challenges, such as high distribution costs, and high level of returns in logistics, and high investments in marketing campaigns to promote their products. So to address these issues, we created a platform to connect these importers with digital distributors or sellers, diversifying the sales channels for the importers and lowering their operating costs. On the other hand, I wanted to share my experience regarding the company that I took public and raised funds for in Canada. In 2017, regulation for medical cannabis was approved in Colombia, so sparking huge interest in Canadian investors who wanted to be part of this industry. Previously, some years before that, I had the opportunity to help a European company structure all the process of taking a company public on the TSX Venture and a Canadian Securities Exchange, as Patrick mentioned before, as an employee. So this experience taught me how the process worked. In 2018, with the boom of the cannabis industry in Colombia, first I decided to found a medical cannabis company, and then I decided to take this company public. So we joined a group with a great experience in the Canadian capital markets and a local partner to undertake this process. We started the fundraising with our local partner as lead investor, holding dozens of meetings and calls to start raising our pre-listing funding. We were able to raise $8.8 million in that moment. We were raising funds while simultaneously hiring and working with attorneys, auditors, IR companies, so to organize all the required documentation. And this is an extensive process left us with a very little sleep for about 6 months. After around 8 months of full involvement, in February 2019, we started trading on the Canadian Securities Exchange. So as Patrick mentioned, when you think about going public, you might imagine needing a huge company with more than 100 million in revenue. However, in Canada, there are some stock exchanges for junior companies. So Phil is going to talk more about it. So these companies, of course, must have like a first class founders, a business with sufficient traction, with advanced product market fit, attractive margins, perhaps a few $1 million in annual revenue. That would be the most desirable company. But this opens up a possibility for many companies to explore a different route to raise funds and list on the stock market at not so advanced stage. So my advice on the recommendation that I wanted to provide is like as a key takeaway from my experience is the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people, having a network of knowledgeable people and experienced partners who can make a significant difference in the success of your venture. So I think that's pretty much from my side. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, I would like to, if you'd like to get in touch with me, I will leave my email address on the Zoom chat. And now I leave Patrick and Phil again.
Okay, and thank you for that. So Philly, do you want to get started here?
Sure. Thanks for organizing everything. Everyone can hear me okay? So my name is Philip Shum. I'm the Director of Listings Development for the Canadian Securities Exchange. I'm based in Toronto, Canada here. Yeah, for those who know Toronto or who've actually been here, we're actually on the 72nd floor of the Canadians of the first Canadian place. So we can see the CN Tower very, very closely. So, certainly in the future, if any of you guys head up to Toronto, please let me know and we can give you a tour of the exchange. To give you a bit of a background on myself, I've been here at the exchange for about 6.5 years. My key role is to work as a concierge for companies to list interested in going public in Canada. So I work with companies that are in Eastern North America, all of Asia. So that's mostly Hong Kong and Singapore, but then also Europe as well, and now Latin America as well. So for the most part, I don't sleep a lot because I'm always on a phone call of some sort or another to talk to different types of companies. Background wise, I've been here, as I mentioned, 6.5 years. Me and Patrick used to work together at another diversified financial services company. But prior to that, I actually spent 12 years working in technology, finished off my career as the product manager for PayPal in Canada here, and then I'd worked for various other tech startups firms. So part of the attraction for me wanting to work with a lot of tech companies is because, of course, I've been through the scenario where raising money has been always a challenge, as well as also, depending on the investor sentiment, it can be very challenging, and you've got to be innovative in terms of how you look to raise funds. And at the same point, working directly with a lot of VCs, can be, I'll say, a bit challenging just because of the single source of capital that from where you've got. But having going public is a different way of looking at funding your company. To give you an oversight about the CSE, just briefly, the exchange has been around for approximately 20 years or so. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary this year. We have approximately 800 publicly listed companies. There's approximately 135 technology companies at this point, and the overall market cap of the exchange is approximately $25 to $30 billion Canadian. So let's kind of start from the beginning. It's so most of the people on this call are from Latin America. So why come to Canada? Well, Canada in itself has a good amount of infrastructure in terms of companies going public. Obviously, we are a G7 nation. We've got a very diverse group of service providers which can help companies go public. Obviously lawyers, bankers, auditors, whatever the case is. And Toronto, where I'm located, is the financial capital of Canada. So to put it into perspective, we've got 800 publicly listed companies. The TSXV has approximately 1,900 companies, and the TSXV has approximately 1,500 companies. So what does that mean? That means essentially that there are a lot of companies going public. There's a lot of competition for capital, but at the same point, there's a lot of sources of capital here as well. We do operate under the rule of law here, under common law. So there, in the event of any challenges, there is a whole legal system to support everything at the same point. Now, one of the reasons why we're talking about going public in Canada for early stage companies is really because of the unique structure that Canada operates. Patrick has briefly mentioned it, but we do have what's called a senior tier exchange system here, and we have a ventures exchange system here. Now, the senior tier companies are essentially the large, let's say, call it the insurance companies, the telecom companies, generally speaking, companies that have hundreds of $millions of revenue, if not billions, and they need access to capital to, let's say, grow different markets or acquire different types of customers and stuff like that. The venture market was very established here, I would say about 40 to 50 years ago, just due to the advent of the large proliferation of mining companies in Canada. So many of these companies needed access to venture capital because once it costs a lot to set up a mining company, and it costs a long time at the same point. So mining companies would leverage the capital market system. And due to this advent of mining financing, that has proliferated into all sorts of other sectors that are out there, in particular technology as well. The other thing that we offer, because of Canada is very much linked with the US markets, and we are obviously in the same time zone. I guess most of Latin America is as well. But the markets are very, I should say, actually, the stocks are very much fungible, meaning that if you get listed in Canada and then you get listed into the for the OTC markets, either the QX or QB boards that they have, there is this sense of compatibility between both Canada and the United States. And frankly, if you're listed on the OTC, you can also get investors buying your shares from anywhere else in the world. Next page, Patrick. Okay, so I did talk about this. CSE is founded in 2003. We've got actually Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, and Montreal offices. And the whole purpose of the exchange was to provide access to the most cost-efficient capital for public issuers. And we have actually been the world's fastest growing stock exchange. In 2021, we listed 181 new companies, which essentially is considering there are maybe 200 working days in the year from Monday to Friday for a few weeks. We almost listed one every day. So that was a really, really good year for us. As I mentioned, so we're just around 800 issuers. 1.2 billion has been raised in the last 12 months with about 830 financing deals, many of which are generally speaking smaller in size, but they are very much geared towards the venture market. So this is a list of all of the sectors in terms of how much has been raised over the last little while. You can see that we, as of 6 years, 2019, we were just over 3 billion. That peaked in 2021 at just about 8.6 or so. And then 2023, about 1.5 billion. Currently, we're trending at approximately 1.2 billion or so. It's reasonably good considering the market is not as frothy or as busy as 2021, relatively speaking, but we certainly are getting a lot of financings at this point. They're just generally speaking smaller in size. Next page. Okay, so why the CSE compared to all the other companies? And some of the major reasons that people look at the CSE are really, it comes down to, one, it's a lower cost model. So we have a low cost model where companies can get listed quickly, as well as at a very inefficient cost basis. On top of that, we also try to make sure that we are very business friendly as well. So if you look at, for those who don't know, getting listed on a stock exchange is somewhat similar to getting listed on a, or rather joining a golf club. So you have your initiation fee that you would have at a golf course, and then you have your monthly spend that you have to spend as well. Well, what we've done at the CSE is that we have an initial listing fee, which is effectively a review of the actual application. We have to make sure that when the file comes in from your securities lawyer or from the company, that it meets the listing requirements that are on the company, or rather, we just have to make sure it complies to the local securities commission's rules on who gets accepted or not. So that $25,000 to $40,000 there, that is that's predicated on the size of the company upon its listing, the valuation that is. The 100 million is for over 100. I'm sorry, the $40,000 is for over 100 million in terms of value, and for a sub $10 million company, it's a $25,000 upfront fee. The annualized fee is $10.50, and that again is for the low end of the companies, and for the high end is 125. But generally speaking, most of the companies that we see are generally speaking, I would say 15 to 20, 25 million in size, valuation wise. So what does that mean? That means that you're probably looking at about $40,000 to get listed, 40,000 Canadian to get listed for the first year of service. Now, where the next line below that, additional listing fees and supplemental listings. One thing where we're different compared to other exchanges, because there is another venture exchange called the TSXV. It's in the right column there. We do not charge what's called financing fees. So upon raising money, the TSXV charges a percentage of the funds, and it goes to the TSXV as a commission per se. We don't charge that amount. So essentially what that means is that if it's going to cost you, if you raise $10 million, the 0.5%, let's say, which is about $50,000, goes to the TSXV. We let you keep that, and you go ahead and you can go hire some new staff, buy some new equipment, buy new property, whatever the case is. We just want to make sure that it's a much more efficient use of your capital, considering, you know, the stock exchange hasn't done anything essentially to help you raise the money. So why should we get any of that? So we want to make sure that you can maximize the use of the capital markets raising facility as well. Next line is transaction fee. So usually what happens is with other exchanges, if you have a question about rules or regulations, or you want to propose a transaction, just a review of the transaction itself costs money as well. We don't have that fee. Next page, please. Oh, one last thing. Go back to one page. So that annualized fee, it is a flat fee. So what that means is that you can ask us as many questions, or you can ask us for review of certain transactions, and it is all still the same fee. It's just like an all-you-can-eat buffet, so to speak. Okay, next page. U.S. and international access. So one of the things that we want to make sure as Canadians, as a G7 country, we of the 800 companies that we have, approximately 600 of them are dual listed on the OTC. And there would be multiple categories of, because the OTC has about 5 different classes. Approximately of the 600, approximately one quarter of them, about 150 of them are listed on what we call the QX and the QB ones, which are the more regulated boards within the 5 that the OTC markets has. We think it's a really, really important point to go ahead and make sure once you're listed on the CSE to get an OTC listing as well, because what it will do is allow, obviously, investors everywhere else in the world, including Colombia, Brazil, other places in Latin America, or places like Dubai, Australia, Singapore, wherever else, these other additional investors can buy your shares, which is quite beneficial because what it does is it diversifies your investor base to make sure that you can have people see your company from an access standpoint, or rather buy your shares from an international facet, which is great. The other thing, the part on the right, growing international access, what we're trying to do at an exchange level is just to make sure we reach out to different sources of capital as well as different markets on an international level to make sure that we can try to continue espouse the values of the CSE to either get access to more issuers, but at the same point, help develop the infrastructure behind the scenes to make sure that everyone can get access to the exchange. We do have a few companies which are what we call interlisted or dual listed. These are companies that are going to be on NASDAQ, obviously in New York City, Aquis, which is out of London, and then Frankfurt, and of course the LSE. And soon, very shortly, we're looking to add a couple companies which are listed out of the ASX as well. Okay, next. So Patrick has kind of talked a bit about the financings and stuff like this, but these are the top financings in 2024. The key ones to be looking at, and by the way, this is for everyone, but the key ones to be looking at are, let's say, XTM, which is a fintech company here in Toronto, Canada. 14.3 was raised. Big Digital Assets raised $8 million. And the other companies are other sectors. But what I did do some research earlier today, and the largest tech financing we have had in for the CSE is about 60 million, and it was for Burna Technologies, and they make new specialized non-lethal weapons for security forces and or police teams and stuff like that. And they would have actually, it's not the traditional high tech, where one does a lot of coding in Python or everything else behind the scenes, but that's the classification there. There is another company called Tenant, which is a fintech company that did stuff, which is from Montreal, Canada, but had China as a market, and they raised approximately 56 million in 2021 as well. Next. Okay, so listing requirements. So what's it take to get listed on the CSE? So there are a few categories. One of the important things is that it has to qualify as what's called a reporting issuer. Here in Canada, we have, to be a public company, you have to be listed on a stock exchange, and you have to become a reporting issuer. Listed on the stock exchange, we've kind of talked about it, and that's like going through the application process, submitting an application, and getting approval from either a securities commission locally or the CSE reviews the application and then accepts you. Now, the other thing that's also important is that it has to be a reporting issuer. A reporting issuer, essentially that means is that all of your information, whatever it is from a disclosure standpoint, has to be posted online. So your audited financials, any major news releases that you have. Let's remember that when you are a publicly listed company, you are subject to a lot of rules and regulations to make sure that everything is properly done and is disclosed for the purpose of the investor to get the true and fair assessment of the information that is available. So any major news releases or financials should be posted online for people to be able to review it. Whether they review it or not is another thing, but it has to be out there so that people can see the information. Okay, next category, go back, yeah, revenue or working capital. So when it comes down to it, there are, we, as I mentioned, are very much a venture exchange. So we will take very early stage companies. We have taken multiple companies that have little to no revenue whatsoever. And depending on the sector preference, that actually does well. For example, mining companies and stuff like that. But if you are a technology company, what we would be looking for is that to have at least $200,000 of working capital at the time of when you go list. So, for example, if in the go public process, there are costs attached with that, let's say a legal cost and or audit costs or whatever the case is. So if it costs you $150,000 to go public, you should raise at least $350,000 so that you have at least $2,000 at the time of when you go public. Now, it's either $200,000 available capital at the time you go public, or the equivalent of raising enough money to make sure that you can sustain your business for at least 12 months. So whichever one is the higher of the two, that's what the CSE would be looking for. So for example, if you do have various offices running, you've got staff, you've got a development team or whatever the case is, and your burn rate is approximately $3 million in overall amount, you would have to raise the equivalent of 3 million plus to go public amount. So that would be, let's say, using the similar example that as what I mentioned earlier, 3.15 million or so. Having said that, we are flexible and we can look at making sure that the company gets listed, and we can work with the company to make sure that they have the right sources of capital. Next thing, public float. So when we talk about a publicly listed company, essentially what that means is that the principles of a private company, in other words, everyone on this call, is looking to diversify or sell shares from their treasury to investors to allow them to be able to have a vote in terms of what happens with the company, as well as also participate in the upside when the company goes up in valuation. So there is a requirement in Canada here for having at least what's called 150 shareholders. These are companies which are, or rather shareholders which are non-management or non-insiders. Management obviously is the CEO, CFO, chief product officer, chief revenue officer, all of these guys, but also the insiders, which are deemed those that own 9.9% or less within the company. Okay, and so the public float requires 150, as I mentioned, but it should constitute at least 20% of the total issued and outstanding of that security. So for example, if you had 5 million shares in total for the total amount of shares available, at least 1 million of those should be in the public hands, of which there would be 150 shareholders there. Builder share restrictions. So we deem that there should be no more than 25% of the security which is issued at anything more than 2 cents. So essentially, the benefit there is that if you have too many builder shares, what happens is that it causes you to go and assuming you maintain the public float requirement, what we want to do is to make sure that we encourage the firms to go ahead and to solicit new sources of capital. That's the only way that you as also a shareholder can also benefit, because you do want to be able to increase the valuation, and you don't necessarily have to do that by increasing the number of shares. You can look to increase the value of the share price. So one of the key things that we look for is share structure. One last thing is sponsorship is not a requirement. What does that mean? Essentially, here in Canada, typically, if you go to any other stock exchanges, you require a broker to be your partner, meaning that a regulated stockbroker or or a corporate finance team. On the CSE, it's not a requirement. So you could conceptually raise all the money yourself. You don't have to go via a broker format, and you can get all of it done yourself. Next page. Yeah. Patrick briefly talked about this. We essentially last year added what's called a senior tier. So what this does is allows Canadian companies that are listed on the CSE, or rather I should just say companies that are listed on the CSE, have the ability to be able to graduate from the venture style to our senior tier. You don't have to go to different exchanges. And the benefit of that is that we've been looking to add this board for the last 20 years, or rather 19 years, and we finally did it last year. Next page. Okay, for all intents and purposes, these are just listing requirements for the next level. I think we could probably skip this for now, but we highly recommend that most companies go to the venture board initially, and then you can look to go to the senior tier there afterwards. Next page. Right. Okay. As I mentioned, the CSE has approximately 800 companies at this point. So one of the differences where I've talked about is that we offer a lower cost model. We try to be much more friendly from a regulatory standpoint, so that we can work with issuers to make sure that they get listed and then operate their business efficiently. And the third pillar that we have is that we focus a lot on issuer services. So we try to be more business friendly. So what does that mean? That means essentially we have a market open session here. So I'm just in our newly developed podcast room. So when a company gets public, we have the ringing of the bell. We bring various individuals to attend this. And then obviously you can bring 20 to 30 people. We've had as many as 50 people for a market open. We've had babies, we've had animals, we've had all sorts of different types of things appear at our market opens, and we welcome all of that. But really what it is, it's a celebration of the long process to get public and raise money and stuff like that. Once they go public, then we do a little interview about the company. I would encourage everyone to go to CSE TV on YouTube to see all of the work that we've done. We have hosted a lot of events to provide subject matter expertise, as well as also talk about trending topics, as well as attend a lot of events as well. So by attending a lot of events, we get in front of a lot of different groups and issuers, and we provide update videos as well. We also have a magazine, as well as we do a lot of stuff here in Toronto, as well as throughout Canada, to make sure we're promoting our issuers. This is not something that the other exchanges do. So if you put it all together, we're generally speaking cheaper, generally speaking much more business friendly, and certainly much more engaged with the issuer as well. Next page. Yeah, so here's just some examples. We've got the market open, special events, CSE magazine, newly listed clips, and the podcast. Okay, so some of the frequently asked questions. Is it possible to go public if my company is not break even? The answer is yes. As I mentioned, we will accept companies that are that have no revenue at this point. We don't suggest it, but it is possible. There are companies which get listed, which have little to no revenue, but generally speaking, have a pretty good opportunities or pretty good pipeline of opportunities that should be pending. And raising of the funds is used towards the accomplishment of those products, let's say. Next, do some of the companies, or rather officers or board of directors, have to be Canadian citizens? So the answer is no. Conceptually, you could have every single officer or director that is not Canadian. We have some of those, but we do recommend that it is important to make sure that you have some sort of Canadian representation. If you're going to be listed here, you really should have at least one or two people who can either answer questions about to investors, as well as work with investment bankers or lawyers or analysts to make sure that there's representation for your firm here. Does the company have to incorporate in Canada? No, the answer is no. But you have to be what's called, as I mentioned, a reporting issuer in Canada. So we have companies that are listed in Bermuda, Brazil, Dubai, Delaware, Singapore, Hong Kong. Most of the companies are Canadian in nature. And one of the things that I would advise is that you should look at potentially listing, or rather incorporating in Canada, but make sure you check with a tax lawyer first and foremost, because it does trigger certain tax events. But the benefit for that is, of course, when you are a Canadian company, certain investors may look at it more favorably compared to being in Latin America. How long does the listing process take? So what would happen is, assuming that one of the companies on this call decide that, yes, I would like to go public, I would encourage you to work with Camilo and Patrick to put together a business plan to and a go-market plan to come to Canada. And what you would like to, what you at that point do is work with financiers to raise some money, and then work with a lawyer to go through a process to apply and have a securities document submitted to the CSE. And at that point, once we've received the file itself, generally speaking, it's between 8 to 12 weeks thereafterwards, at which point you get conditional approval, and generally speaking, 2 weeks after that, you're public. Now, assuming the companies on this company decide today we want to do it, it's, as a general statement, 9 to 12 months from now. And that's because there is the money part. Some people raise money along the way before you go public, and some raise during the go public process. But that 9 months could be contracted into 6 months. But generally speaking, it's 9 to 12 months in total. Yeah, okay, great. And I think that wraps it up for me. I've talked a lot here, and we'd certainly be open to take some questions, and or maybe Patrick and Camilo can step in as well. Thank you.
Yeah. I think, we have some time for questions. I just want to go over a few things, then we'll open it up. Just to go over who we are again. So Camilla and I are working together as essentially advisory support for ideally Latin American companies, any companies from Central America, South America that would be interested in coming here. We can help you with the process. I can help from Toronto. Camilo can help from Bogota. His Spanish is a little bit better than mine, so we're good there. And we can organize you roadshows to come to Canada. If you want to come to Toronto, or if you're interested in another country, perhaps we could do that too. but we could start with Toronto. So Camilla and I, we're gonna pre-select 10 companies if any companies are interested. And then we can talk to you about what you want to do and what your options are. And from that, we want to take maybe 1 to 3 companies public. So that is the goal. It would be our first company that we would take the CSE public. So we want to make sure that we do it right, and we choose companies that definitely have the valuation and the legs to move further. Camilla, do you want to say anything else?
No, not from my side. I just wanted to probably emphasize that this is a great opportunity just to open up a new alternative to raise funds. And there are a lot of talent in Latin America. There are a lot of great startups that are growing super fast. So I think this is a terrific opportunity for all these startups to look at. And yeah, any help that you require, any questions, please feel free to get in touch with us. And of course, we want to help the Latin American ecosystem just to get more liquidity, to have better opportunities. So that's the reason why we organize this event.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Camilla. So now we'll open it up for questions. If anybody would like, you just have to unmute yourself. Then feel free to talk. Any questions? I guess not. I think we're good. Oh, it's not working? Oh, okay. Is it not working for anybody? I think. Yeah, okay. I guess if you have questions, please put it in the chat. I don't know why it's not working.
Where's my hand, Patrick? Do
Oh,
you hear
hi.
me?
Hi, yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I guess more than a question is a comment that might help the dynamics of the conversation. A lot of our companies here are, at least in my case, we are a small company, and we are quite distant from the numbers you presented. However, a lot of companies that I've seen in our innovation ecosystem, they have great potential for grow up, but we are right now in the phase of prototypes, testing, and finally having concrete, solid data or solid information to say, hey, this thing works. And that's the point where I guess many companies, they don't see ready to go public. They don't see themselves, hey, we are ready, but they do have the potential, and probably that potential is regarded as not so great if put it that idea in the Canadian market or the Saudi Arabia or the United Emirates market. So that's probably the reason why you don't get a lot of questioning or feedback. The point is, many of us are looking for funding, not large amounts, but on a sort of grant and a sort of venture capital source that you don't have to pay, and you're not interested in paying a lot of fees for entering into the CSE because you don't have to waste your resources in that kind of activity. Rather, you have to use your resources in research, investigation, engineering, construction, and testing. So I guess that's my comment, if that helps to improve the dynamics of the conversation.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that. Yes, so I would say building a company takes a lot of work, and it's good to have people help you along the way. If your goal is to IPO someday, maybe there's like a 3-year plan or 5-year plan. You could come here
Yeah.
and raise money privately. Although if you don't want to go public, people might not be as interested. Like if you give them like a range, you say, okay, I'm working on my R&D, we have no sales, but I think maybe in 1 to 2 years we'll be good. We think it's going to be sell for this much. We think we're going to have this much volume. We're going to use this factory. You know, if you iron out your story a little bit, it is possible to raise money if it is an interesting idea that people might be interested in. If the market
All right.
potential is big enough, then sure, people would invest in that, either privately or publicly. I think people would
All right.
listen for sure. Is the short answer is people would listen if you have a presentation that's interesting and you can resonate with potential investors.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anyone else have a question? Okay, well, thanks for joining. I think we'll just call it at that. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or Camilo or call us. We'll send out an email. If you could sign the form, if you didn't sign it, please sign it if you're interested in chatting with us. Otherwise, thanks for coming, and hope to talk to you again sometime. Bye-bye.